My parents weren't the best role models. My brothers even spent time in foster care. My mentor committed suicide. I dropped out of music school, ended up working for a company that just straight up used me up until I burnt out, and then I went homeless. I was living in a van for a few months, and I was so poor that I was stealing groceries to eat. That's how poor I was. Super fun times. And it was at the rock bottom of homelessness that I learned some of the biggest lessons of my life, and I want to give those to you in this video. So even if you're not broke, if you're not homeless, if you're an Airbnb person, there's going to be some lessons in here that you can learn from too, because I'm going to give the roadmap from the bottom to the top in this video. While I was homeless, I was making private party payments to a neighbor of mine who was selling a van that he no longer needed. I couldn't afford a loan or get credit or anything, and I talked him into selling me this van. I was making him monthly payments, and it's because my car got repossessed, I got evicted, it was pretty rough. And the seed of change that came for me was a couple of people helped me, like the van guy. Like, he didn't have to do that, but there's a guy at Bank of America, a business banker, and I went in to open a bank account to try to start a company or something like that. Chase Bank had a judgment against me back in 2009, and so I couldn't open up bank accounts. So this business banker saw that I was down bad, and he wanted to help me out. And he said, hey, us business bankers here at Bank of America, there's this required reading list that they make us read certain books. And this one book that he handed me, he's like, this was a really good book for me, and I think you're going to benefit from it. Random book to give a kid. The book was called The Leadership Pipeline. You've probably heard me talk about this book. This book is so near and dear to me due to this exact situation. It's the book that I say got me out of homelessness. This guy had no clue that this book had the message that I needed to hear to get out of homelessness, but here's what the message was. In the first couple chapters of the book, it talks about going from being a contributor to being a manager. And it has a cautionary tale in the book, which is that if you're trying to promote a salesperson to a manager, be careful that that salesperson is not just a super salesman, because those people will not succeed in management. And what happened to me, what made me go homeless, was I was selling for a company. They needed a leader. They saw that I would work harder than anybody else and I had great sales numbers, and they promoted me to management, and I had failed in that management role. They then demoted me, gave my boss's brother my sales team. I quit that job because my pride was hurt, feelings was hurt. I tried to start my own business. That failed, and I just tumbled into homelessness. And I felt really bad about it. But what this book was saying essentially was, it was not my fault that a company promoted me into management, did not train me to be a manager, by the way, and that I failed on the back end. Simplify that message down one more time. It was not my fault. This can happen to almost anybody. It is such a common issue that this guy wrote it in a book, and I should not be ashamed of myself. And that's the message that I needed to hear, and that came from a business book that some stranger at Bank of America gave me. And I want you to take that message and look inward. I want you to self-reflect. If you're having a hard time right now, if you're down bad financially, broke, homeless, on the way there, do you feel shame? Are you being unnecessarily hard on yourself because you think it's your fault that your world is breaking? For me, that was mine. Shame was the coffin that closed upon me, that drove me into homelessness, and I needed to find a way out. And this book gave me that message that allowed me to start all over again. So herein lies the beginning of our blueprint. A lot of people who are financially distressed or go homeless that stay there because they are punishing themselves, or they no longer believe in themselves, and they are resigning to a life of poverty or failure or even death at the end of it. You need to find a way to first forgive yourself for your situation and not be overly hard on yourself because you were once successful and now you are no longer successful. If you've never been successful, if you've been poor your entire life, we could go back to my childhood and I could tell you a little bit about that. And maybe we'll do that in another video, but I will summarize it here. I used to look at wealthy people as the other. I used to blame them for the fact that my family was poor and that I was poor. But after graduating high school barely with a 2.1 GPA, I worked in a factory because they were paying $14 an hour if you worked third shift. And I got to see a lot of older people. It was a union job. And I saw people wasting their life away, working for an hourly rate, telling their stories about how they're victims. And it reminded me of my mother and her stories about how she was a victim. And it started to remind me of the times that I used victim language in order to justify my existence and my lack of effort in certain areas. And I realized that at 18, I had the same job that 45-year-old guys had, working in a factory. I already made it as far as them financially, got the safe union job. That made me realize I didn't want to stay there. I didn't want to be there when I was 45. That realization that I wanted to change was the seed of me taking accountability for my own internal power. So I think people who've been stuck in the hole their whole life because their family's in the hole and then they're raised in the hole, taking accountability for your internal power to change your environment is the one thing that you need to internalize before you can start to change your world. And no, you don't just wake up and realize that you have authority over your life and you have sovereignty and autonomy and then you're suddenly rich. That's not how it works, but it allows you to make steps in the right direction. It's going to be a long journey. It was for me. I was 18 when I realized that I had the power to change my life. I was 24 when I started the company that would make me my first $1 million, which happened at 25. And in between that, I screwed around a lot. I did not live a perfect life by any means. So I took my time in a way, and it took me 7 years. So even if it takes you 7 years from the point of taking accountability to being a millionaire, I tell you 7 years isn't so bad, is it? So pick your message. Take your accountability, don't be a victim, and rise up for the first time ever in your life, or forgive yourself for failing and for bouncing off the bottom again. I'd say most people who've lived a really big, full life have started in basket A, made some money, failed, ended up in basket B, and bounced again. So this is the path that I went through, and if you're on my journey, cool, welcome to my journey. It's been a great one. As many downs as there have been, it's been a great journey. And there's a book I want you to read, and there's a way I want you to look at the world right now. I'm gonna give both of these to you. So first, the way I want you to look at the world. If you are broke and without a job, you are also without obligation, and the world is full of possibilities. By contrast, you could be making $110,000 a year right now. You could have a family, a couple of kids, you could have a couple car payments, you could have a mortgage, your kids could be in private school, you could have credit card debt, you could be keeping up with the Joneses. That guy who makes $110,000 a year and burns every single check 4 days after payday, he's on a hamster wheel that he can't get out of. He is a slave to the system, and you're not a slave to the system. You can change your life right now in an instant. If that guy wanted to change his life and live a life that was more for himself, he'd have to give the cars back, sell the house, put his kids in private school, let the credit card debt default. He'd probably end up divorced, and he'd have to break his whole entire ego down to allow for this, because his whole life has been based on providing and being successful, and his ego has trapped him in that spot. And he'd have to break himself down and then break his world and lose everything and start again. So if that is not your situation, you're already ahead of that guy. There are thousands of people on this planet who make six figures that are not happy and will never be happy because they can't do that. They can't take it all away to start again. Sitting in a tough situation, rock bottom, no job, no obligations, no double car payment. You are starting from scratch, which is a great place to be. This book has a little bit of everything in it. It's got stories from multiple people who've changed their lives using some principle or some technique. Now, the technique that got me, the one that really helped me start my first successful company, was the story of the woman that's trying to get a job, but she needs to move to get a job because there's no jobs in her town. She's writing letters to people saying, hey, I'm skilled in this area, I'm willing to relocate. But no one would call her in for an interview. So she switched it up and she changed the letter. And let me tell you how she changed the letter by telling you my story. When I was homeless, living out of that van, I ended up dating a girl whose parents were rich. There's a girl who dropped out of McCombs School of Business in Austin. Super smart girl, super haunted though. She had some issues she's working through. Her mom was a VP for Bank of America. Dad was an architect. Life is all good, right? But she was abusive. She was verbally and emotionally abusive, and I got stuck in that relationship. That Christmas, they went on vacation to Port Aransas by Corpus Christi because they own a condo down there, and I got invited to go. This vacation was shortly after she sold all of my emo clothes from college and bought me Tommy Hilfiger stuff. Super heartbreaking. And I was wearing this stupid sweater that I hated and these stupid pants that I hated. And I went on this vacation with this family that was all uptight, and she was super uptight and pretentious, and I was stuck in that situation, right? But while I was there on vacation as this poor kid that they were doing me some favors, I saw the skyline of Corpus Christi. It's not that impressive, but for me, across the water, it looked really cool. And I said, oh, I would totally live here and work here if I could. So what I did is I called the local newspaper, left them a message. I said, hi, my name's Sean. I just moved to Corpus Christi. I used to sell newspaper subscriptions for the Houston Chronicle. I'm available to come in and sell newspapers for you. I'd love to build you guys a sales team. Call me back. That's what the woman did in her letter. Instead of saying that she was willing to relocate, she said, I'm already there. Bring me in for an interview. She did a few interviews, somebody hired her, and then she moved to that city. She acted as if she already lived there. That's what I did in that voicemail. Now, it took 4 months for them to call me back, but it still worked. So in that book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, you might find something that you utilize to start to build momentum in your life. Now, there's another element of this story as well that allowed me to start my first business. I had developed a skill that can pay a lot of money. And this is something I want you to focus on too. My world, it was sales. You could also learn to program or code. You could learn copywriting. You could get into electrical or plumbing. You could take a trade. There are plenty of things that do pay a lot of money, and all of them have a path to become a millionaire. All of them. And I'll tell you in this video. In my personal story, it was sales. So my bias is learn sales, learn the art of influence, because it goes beyond sales as well. I'd say any other trade that you pick up, you should also learn the art of influence. So why not take a sales job? And here's what I mean. If you learn to program or code, and then you also know how to sell or influence, you can start prospecting your own clients and you can become a freelancer. Same thing for graphic design or becoming a plumber You can learn how to close your own contracts and become a freelancer, start your own small business. The art of influence is one of the most undersung abilities for any person who starts their own business ever. One major indicator of success for any new business owner is if they are willing to sell their business to people. If they're willing to talk about their business, prospect to hire people, prospect to earn contracts. Selling and the art of influence is everywhere. Outside of work, it can get you lower rent from a landlord. It can get you and your friends all to agree upon one activity one weekend. It can help you build new friendships, get a relationship, pick up the girl you have a crush on. Influence is everywhere. Now, this next part is a little bit mystical, but I want you to believe in this, like it could happen to you, because you're not going to know everything. You're not going to be able to call all of your shots. This had to go a very specific way for me. I made that phone call. It took them 4 months to call me back. And here's what happened in that meantime. That abusive girl, the one that sold all my clothes, the one that would demean me almost every single day, make me feel like a piece of trash, I had to leave her. And it took me until February or March to leave her. And I ended up living in some $500 per month room in some apartment complex where I had multiple roommates, didn't know any of them, found it on Craigslist. So I took my van and my $500 a month and I started living there. And I started working for the company that demoted me. So I was back working with them, selling again. I swallowed my pride and went to work for them. I made an agreement with them that if I built a sales team that outperformed their current team, I'd get my territory back. I'd get Houston back as my account. Because the guy that took my position years ago when my boss demoted me and gave his brother my job, he was no longer there. He might have been in rehab or jail or something, right? He just failed and gave up and went back to living a pretty haunted life. So the company was struggling and the manager that they had at the time was not performing well. So I built a sales team and it took me just under 4 weeks to outperform the current team. And guess what? The company lied to me once again. They did not give me my territory back. I outperformed the current manager and they screwed me over once again and said, hey, no, we're gonna split the territory up and we're gonna give you this chunk. And it was a pretty trashy chunk of Houston. It was a really bad deal. But once that happened, I got a phone call from the Corpus Christi Caller-Times. It's like everything lined up perfectly. So I got lied to once again. After building a sales team in my industry, after finally leaving the girl that was demeaning me and me swallowing my pride, which was a necessary step in all of this, and with all that aligned, I get a call from a newspaper. Inside of a week, I got my own contract and I got a sales team and I say, hey, we're going to Corpus Christi because I got my own contract. Let's go. And I got to take everything that I just built and felt good about leaving to going to Corpus and starting my own business. I needed to go homeless, swallow my pride, break up with that girl, start with the same company again, build a new sales team, have them fail me once more, reached out to some company based on something I read in a book, and then be willing to drop everything in a moment and start a new business. It all had to line up, all on the timeline that it happened. Because if they called me 3 months prior, I was still in this process of trying to leave this girl. I didn't believe in myself. I had no resources. I had no savings, nothing. I would not have been able to pull it off when I made that phone call. That's the mystical part of this, is at the center of all this was my energy and my effort and my belief in myself and my tenacity, but the universe started to line up with me to make it possible on the other side. So I need you to act with some faith to do whatever it is you can to fix your situation and not know how it's going to work out. Just know that it will. That's what I need from you. And then I want you to take this big life lesson and develop that skill that can pay you some money. And I want you to go start making some money with this high-paying skill, whatever it is. And I want you to then get safe. That's your third phase of this. There's a book called The 4-Hour Work Week where the guy talks about going on sabbaticals, where you can leave your world behind for a month and it won't break while you're away. He's speaking towards business owners, people with teams and revenues, and saying, yeah, you as a CEO could go leave for a month and your team's good without you. But there's a smaller version of this. You see, what's really hard about being poor is the defensive game that you have to play. Your car's constantly breaking down. You've got to make all of your bills, find some way to eat while giving all of your time to some company that doesn't care about you, where you don't feel aligned. And you still have to find a way to invest in yourself, stay rested, and try to find your way up in life. It's really tough. It's chaos. So what you need to do is cut away the chaos. You need to focus only on getting to a point where life is predictable, where life is safe, where you have a car that doesn't constantly break down, where you have a safe space to sleep at night, where you have people around you that aren't constantly trying to get things from you, nagging on you, dragging you down, where you can make all of your bills without stressing out every single day, where you can come home somewhere and have some peace and have some quiet and have some rest. From there, I want you to start picking up good habits. You're going to wake up every morning, go to the gym. You're going to start eating better. You're going to make the right friends, positive ones, ones that are ambitious, ones that believe in personal growth and inner investment, reading books, self-education, stuff like that. From that point where you are safe and you can start investing in yourself, create a little savings, make better life choices, be healthier, be happier, handle stress better, from there you can start to visualize your next steps. Now this is where most people are. like the people who watch this YouTube channel who are learning how to Airbnb for free on YouTube here, these people usually are at a place where their life is generally safe and stable. You are now one of everybody else. You've now fixed your level 1 problem, which is the chaos of poverty and not knowing what to do with your life. Welcome to the club, right? Now, this is where everybody can learn the next lesson. You need to learn to change your life through leverage, and not the leverage that you think. See, my very first business was leverage. The sales guys that I trained. In this example, what I did is I took a skill that I had, and I trained other people to duplicate that same skill. My first sales job, I made $20 per sale, and I built a 6-figure income on $20 commissions. And I mastered the art of that sale. And when I hired other salespeople, I taught them to master that same sale. And I paid them more. I paid them like $25 or $30 per sale or something like that. And those people started to make their first 6-figure incomes. But I got a chunk of what they made. I was leveraging other people's effort and other people's skill sets to make me money. This is a form of leverage. And it was symbiotic. It was a net positive. I gave them a skill that made them their first 6-figure income. And in the process of teaching them to make 6 figures, I made my first 7 figures. Everybody got the win. Imagine you're a copywriter. This can happen the same way. You can make a lot of money copywriting. You can start your own copywriting firm, go freelance, pick up businesses that'll pay you by the hour to copyright, pay you a good amount of money to copyright freelance. And now you can pick up bigger contracts, one that have a heavier copywriting load, more than you can do by yourself. You go and find some people who are already copywriters or are copyright capable, and you train them to do the work, and you pay them better than they've ever been paid before, and you get to keep a chunk of what they make, and they are super happy with their position. Now you're in the leverage-based small business world of copywriting. This can happen in almost any talent-based field ever. Imagine anyone, even being a plumber or an electrician. All you have to do now is learn how to manage people. And that's where that book, The Leadership Pipeline, comes back in. There's also a book called Multipliers, which is great. There's a book called Who, A Method for Hiring, books on hiring people, also super great at this point. And if you've learned the art of influence, you can see how that affects leadership, managing morale, getting people to buy in, getting people to believe in themselves more than they ever would, trying harder than they ever would, so that way these people achieve more than they ever could before. The book Multipliers kind of talks about that, so read that book. And this is the big lesson, learning to leverage, either through people or through technology. For example, this video, you're finding it on YouTube. It's gonna take me a couple hours to make this video, and then I post it online. And YouTube will distribute it to all these different phones and screens and stuff. And if anybody clicks yes to watch this video, I'll make a little bit of money on that. And inside of that too, I might get you to click like on this video because you thought it was valuable. You might even subscribe to this channel because you can count on me to deliver you value consistently. That's my plan here for YouTube, is to constantly try to deliver value so that way you come back. And I can build a long-term income off of videos that stay on YouTube for a long, long time. It's called evergreen content. Now, some videos only make a couple $100, but some make like $20,000. So I'm constantly trying to find a way to make a video that'll crack 1 million views, constantly swinging for the fence. And those videos will pay out, but I have to put out the content to make that happen. But that is another form of leverage too, leveraging technology to multiply my time and my presence to distribute across the world. Yay, YouTube. So these forms of leverage have nothing to do with the stuff that we normally hear online, like getting a mortgage, right? Leveraging debt to buy a property, or leveraging margin on a brokerage account so that way you can make more money on a trade. We're not doing that in this situation. We're leveraging our skills, we're leveraging technology, we're leveraging other people, training them to have skills, we're leveraging time through leadership. And all of you can do that. And I've used these principles of leverage to build 4 separate 7-figure businesses. You're gonna take a skill, you'll train other people. You can also recruit other people from your competitors. This is something that I teach in my world of Airbnb. There's 2 types of leverage that I teach. I'll take a landlord who's already bought a house or bought an apartment building and I'll rent from them. I'll take that property, I'll furnish it, I'll put it on Airbnb, and I'll make money off that one property. Now, I've found a way to make money with a property on Airbnb that I don't own, and I've duplicated that to over 150 properties. That is a form of leverage, duplicating something that works and then using the technology of Airbnb to have many conversations through one platform, but get the results of 150 properties instead of just one. Now, I've also hired people to run this business, VAs, housekeepers, quality assurance, management, stuff like that. And with all those single one-on-one relationships, I'm training them with skills that make them better in life, and I pay them to take that position more than they've hopefully ever made before with other positions, so they're constantly improving their state and their stature, and then I'm using that relationship and that leverage to make more money by growing this business. In the housekeeping world, I teach my students to do the same thing. You can find somebody who's housekeeping for a hotel, and you can offer them more money than they've ever made before to come and clean for you, which allows you not to pay that third-party like agency rate. Some housekeeping companies charge like $60 an hour, $45 to $60 an hour for cleaning. But you can find a housekeeper at a hotel that only makes $13 You can pay that person 20 bucks, which is less than the 55 you were about to pay, but more than the 14 that they were making. Both people are happy. You can recruit by paying people better than they've ever been paid before. And as long as you're a small company, your internal costs are probably low enough that you can make that work. You can feel good the entire way because you took the risk first. You developed a skill set. You mastered that skill set. You found a way to pick up more business than you can do yourself. You find people with talent or desire to learn that skill set. You train them to do the same thing. You bring them business. You pay them more than they've ever made before. And you show them a world where they can internalize their own power and they can grow with you as you protect them and grow this business with people who want to follow your leadership. Now that's the golden nugget at the end of the rainbow. You are really protecting and leading these people, and it's through that that you can become a millionaire. Duplication, leverage, and leadership. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope it helps. I wish you guys so much success. And as always, I'll see you on the other side.